Hello Slovenia. Hello Academy Panterei. It's 2 years since I was in Slovenia. I had an absolutely marvellous time meeting you all and running that masterclass in Ljubljana. Have I got the pronunciation right? I hope so. With Branka, the fantastic interpreter. I'm looking so much forward to coming back and seeing you next year and running another masterclass and sharing with you some of the skills I've learned from the 20 years of research into negotiating, selling, influencing and persuading. So, I learnt a few words when I was in Slovenia last time. Let me try them out. Dobo jutro, good morning. I hope I got that right. Kako stay and fantastic Joe. Because I just like talking about things being fantastic, positive, people who are positive get things done better and have better negotiations. If you're up for it, you spend more time, you're thinking positive. If you're fantastic, no, it goes really well. So ladies and gentlemen, are you fantastic? No? Because I want to share some negotiation secrets with you over the next few minutes while we've got some time together. Now this picture on the wall, that's Lauren. Lauren does my negotiations for me. Let's pretend she does my negotiations for me. You're negotiating with Lauren. How are you getting on? Well, as you can see, she's got her arms folded, she's got a frown, her eyes are narrowed, her lips are pouting, and I don't think you're getting on very well. Because reading body language is a very important skill. When you're in a negotiation, you need to look at the body language, see how the person's coming across. Are you making progress? Do you think you could sell to Lauren? I don't think you could, because as she feels at the moment, she's grumpy, she's not in receptive mood, she's not open to what you are saying. Now I want to ask you a question. Do you think you should always negotiate? Now my answer to that question is yes, of course you should. Because you mustn't trust people to always give you the best price. People aren't fair, they want the best for themselves. And therefore if they want the best for themselves, they're not always going to give you the best price. So let's have a think about this. If we are always asking for a little bit of money off, could we have a better price? We're comparing different prices. I think when you're buying something expensive, you should always ask for 3 prices from different sources. So you've created some competition, and therefore you have 1, 2, 3 prices, and you don't always take the cheapest price. You want to take the best service, the best delivery, the best value that you will get, the extras that someone might throw in, because if you always take the cheapest price, you may well get shoddy goods, etc. So think about that, but people need to know that they're under competition. And there's 3 things, in my opinion, that you should be thinking about when you're negotiating. The products that you're selling, the price you're getting. Are you getting a high enough price? Are you putting enough extras into the service? Are people getting it on time? Is it just in time management when you're doing that? Second thing is you should be negotiating your costs carefully. So you keep your costs down as much as you can with a good service, and you sell your products at the highest price. Sales negotiations, cost negotiations. And the third thing that we need to think about very carefully, and a lot of people don't, is our personal relationships with our business partners and also with our relationship partners, with our partners at home, with our children. Children are fantastic negotiators. They're always good. They're always hassling. Can I have another ice cream, Mum? Dad, can I go to bed later? Mum said I could go to bed later than you said, Dad. Is that all right? Or Dad said, and they tell little lies or little fibs sometimes. So watch children, watch 3 and 4-year-olds negotiating, because they got some great skills that people tend to lose when we get older, because we feel a little bit embarrassed about the negotiations. Don't feel embarrassed. Ask. If you don't ask, you don't get. If you don't ask, you don't give the other person the opportunity to say yes to you. So I got 3 words that I want you to think about. What are you going to negotiate? Why are you going to negotiate? And how are you going to negotiate? And they're the 3 crucial issues. Well, let's turn to number 1. What are you going to negotiate? I say you think about negotiating everything. Now, you don't want to upset friends and close people. If you think you've got a good price, then do it. But think about everything as a negotiation. Consider whether you're going to negotiate and then decide whether you are or not. Why should you negotiate? Well, of course, because you'll be better off if you negotiate. You'll get better deals. You actually have better relationships because you'll be giving, they'll be taking, or you'll be taking and they'll be giving, and people like that. And then how are you going to negotiate, which I'm going to go on and talk about in some depth. And I look forward to sharing that with you when I'm next in Slovenia, which I hope is going to be very shortly. Now, from this chart you'll see that in my opinion, negotiation sits in the middle of everything we do in interpersonal skills. We have to present, but when you're presenting, you have to be presenting really well, maybe with some price options. So you've already got that negotiating in there. Then we need to be influencing and using the psychology of influence. We need to be persuading the people that we're the people to do business with. And we have to sell, we have to close the sale at the end of the day. Now, today I want to share with you the secrets of negotiating. Lots of people are not very comfortable with negotiating, so I'm going to give you the 7 top secrets of the best negotiators. And secret number 1 is build rapport. Build rapport with the people that you're going to negotiate with. So make sure that you have some coffee ready, you've got some small talk, you know what their interests are from your previous research, you've Googled their websites, seen what the people look like, so you can really build rapport when they walk in. Then you have to read the people and the situations and where they're coming from by looking at the body language, and I'll go into that a bit more. Tip number 2 is always ask good questions. Good questions begin with open questions. What, why, how, where, what do you want, where are you coming from? And they always have a question mark after them in my mind because that stops me talking, so I can listen to what they're saying at that point. And listening needs to be done with your 2 ears that you've been given and your 2 eyes, so you're listening to the body language as well, so you can hear what they are saying, what they're not saying, perhaps what they're saying which isn't quite as true as we'd like it to be, because people tend to tell fibs and lies sometimes and spin the truth, and then they get hand gestures which go to their faces when they're a little bit uncomfortable, or they move back, or they fold their arms. And there's another session for you to look at on body language, where I go into body language, the secrets of body language, in much more depth. Now we come to tip number 3, which means people prepare very carefully before they go into the negotiation. Proper preparation prevents pretty poor performance. I just love those 6 P's. Prepare, prepare, prepare. And what do I mean by prepare? Get the flip chart out. Brainstorm all the issues. Mind map where you think they might be coming from. Mind map where you're coming from. And think about the best position you want to obtain in the negotiations, the target position and the walk away position. And if you do have to walk away from the negotiations, and sometimes we do have to walk away, then we need to understand what the alternative position is, what we will do with our time, with the money that we've saved if we walk away and we buy something else maybe. Tip number 4 is good negotiators always trade concessions. If I do this for you, what will you do for me? So in other words, we're looking for getting something back. So if they want something off the price, will they pay you in advance? If they want a discount, what else can they give for you? Or like, and what I mean by that is, what other business can they give you? What other promises can they give you? What other introductions? So if I do this for you, what will you do for me? Tip number 5 is they work out all the options, what the variables are, what else we could do. Again, with the person and the situation. So they're thinking all the time, if we can't get this specific deal, how can we make the deal more interesting? Tip number 6 is they understand negotiating tactics. Now there's a number of negotiating tactics that I can talk you through. There's higher authority, there's good guy, bad guy, there's Columbo, which is where you don't quite understand what's going on. So from the TV series Mr. Columbo, Lieutenant Columbo always used to say, well, I guess run that past me again. Because very often people try to dazzle you with facts and figures, and we want the facts, we want to keep things simple. Remember the KISS rule, K-I-S-S, keep it simple. keep it simple, stupid, some people say. I say keep it short and simple, because we want to understand the key issues. And the final one is always negotiate. Always looking for opportunities to negotiate, always looking for money off, always looking for deals, always looking for extras. But at the end of the day, you have to make sure it's a win-win-win. A win for me, a win for the other person, and a win for the ongoing business relationship. Because if we haven't got an ongoing business relationship, how are we going to get other business? And it's 7 times more difficult to get business from people you don't know than to get business you do from people you do know. I want to talk to you now about the 7 mistakes that negotiators tend to make. I've done a lot of research into this over the 20 years I've been negotiating, writing my books, recording my audio CDs, and the 7 mistakes that generally people make when they're negotiating are as follows. Number 1, they tend to trust people to be fair. Well, people aren't fair always. They're looking for the best deal for themselves. They're not always looking for a win-win deal. So you need to have in your mind, are they really at their bottom line? Are they really at their cheapest price? Are they giving you the best deal possible in the circumstances, in market circumstances? Because a number of years ago, things were booming and people were paying high prices. Now we're in a recession, difficult times, people are paying less. So what you're worth may not be worth quite so much, but don't trust the person to always be fair. Be just that little bit skeptical, test them, drive them down, but make sure it's a win-win deal in the end. Point 2 is people are unable to read people or read situations. So in fact, what they're saying may not be what they mean. So look at where they're coming from, watch the body language, watch exactly what they're saying. Make sure that they're being as truthful as you can tell. It's 5 times more difficult to lie with the body language than it is with the actual words that you're using. So read the people, read the circumstances, take someone with you to a meeting if it's an important negotiation so that they can read the body language. Then you can take a break, take a time out, talk to them outside the room and see what their view of the situation is, because we have different perceptions. There's 7 billion people in the world and everyone's got a different perception, a different thumbprint, a bit different eye print, and they see things in different ways. Mistake number 3 that people make is that they give concessions away without trading. Can you give me a 5% discount? Oh yeah, that'll be okay. So what should you do in a situation like that? Can you give me a 5% discount? I'd love to give you a 5% discount if you could pay me straight away. So if you could make the payment into my bank account tomorrow, I'd be happy to give you a 5% discount. What does that do? It gives you 3 things. It gives you immediate cash, it gives you a good relationship with the person, and it means they know that you're not a pushover, you're actually asking for something back. Mistake number 4 is people tend to get a bit nervous about asking. They get nervous that somebody might say no. We don't like rejection, but you just have to ask, because if you don't ask, you don't get. And if you don't ask, you don't give the other person the opportunity of saying yes to you, and they may just be happy to do that. Mistake number 5 that people make is they've got a preoccupation with themselves. So they're thinking about me all the time and not looking at another person, reading them, understanding where they're coming from, putting themselves in the other person's shoes and building that rapport and that empathy so you can actually connect with them to see where they're coming from. If you can get the other person to get what they want, then you can get what you want. Mistake number 6, not understanding the haggling process. We have to do a bit of haggling. When you go to a street market, haggle a bit. When you go into a shop which has got a big margin, furniture store or something that's reasonably expensive, ask for a bit off, keep asking. And if you go to Spain or Portugal or to Morocco where people haggle, practice it, have fun, make it fun, don't feel embarrassed about it. Haggle and just make sure you know what you're doing. And tip number 7, the last tip, is they can't find any time to prepare. Whatever you're negotiating, just stop, think, get a little notepad out and make some notes. Have a look round before you walk into a shop or before you go to a business meeting the night before. Mind map the issues so that you've just got in your own mind that preparation. So they're the top 7 mistakes that I've found from my 20 years of research that people make. Go out and think about those mistakes and watch your profits grow, your costs come down, and your relationships improve. People are always asking me how to negotiate a car. So here are my top tips for getting the best deal for you. Well, that's always very tricky because car salespeople are skilled at negotiation skills. But there are some things you can do, and I want to give you my top tips for when you're negotiating a car. Tip number one is decide what car you want. Don't go into the showroom not knowing what you want. Do some research on the internet, in car magazines, and decide the car you want and the model, and go and have a look at it before you go into the car showroom. When you've decided what car you want, do your preparation. Go on the internet and look at the prices on internet websites, on eBay, of that car, that model, and the mileage comparisons, and decide what car you want, what mileage is maybe on the car. Or if you want a new one, look at new car websites and see what discounts you can get there. So lots of preparation, there's loads of information, it's all available on the internet. Spend 10-15 minutes doing your research. Then when you've done that and you've decided to buy from a car showroom, go into the showroom, have a wander around and build rapport with the salesperson. A lot of people sort of feel that car salespeople are a bit intimidating. Well, don't be intimidated, be friendly, don't be flashy, pretending you know exactly what car you want. Build rapport, think about where the other person's coming from, and when they invite you to sit down, remember they're using sales techniques on you. And the number one sales technique is they'll ask you if you'd like a cup of their free coffee. Well, that's great, take all that and then say, can I have a test drive? Now, when you're having a test drive, they will be asking you lots of questions, and that's okay, but concentrate on the car, concentrate on how it handles. Remember any faults, any questions that you want to ask when you get back into the showroom. So now you're back into the showroom, and the car salesperson doesn't really want to talk about price. They want to talk about, are you going to trade your old car in? Are you going to want finance, hire purchase finance, or are you going to get a bank loan, or are you a cash purchaser? So there's a number of options there where they can muddle the price up. You don't want the price muddled up. You want to keep it as simple as possible. They would prefer to sell you a new car and say that'll be an extra £200 a month for 36 months. You don't know what you're paying for the car, you don't know what the trade-in is at that point, and you don't know if you could get a better deal if you were paying cash. So find out exactly how much they're going to give you for your old car, find out how much discount they're going to give you on the new car, and keep asking what it is. What do you do after that? Well, once you've decided which option, whether you're going to trade in because you like their price, and remember there's a lot of hassle on selling cars on eBay, but lots of people do it. Lots of people sell it in motor magazines like Auto Trader in the UK, and lots of people sell cars privately by just putting private adverts in. And if you've got the time to do that and you think you can get a good deal, and remember you've got a popular car which is easy to sell rather than a more difficult car to sell like I've got a Lexus, an older Lexus, which is much more difficult to sell in these areas, then and I'd prefer to trade mine in when I change it. So what do you do then? Well, you find out what the overall price is and then you flinch. What do I mean by flinch? You go, wow, that's a bit more expensive than I was expecting to pay. What can you do to help me? Now, usually car salespeople are really trained well on this, and they'll say, well, that's the price. And you say, well, no, I really do need some help on that. And then they may start using a technique, and they say, well, if you are going to buy this car, I might go and see the sales manager and see what he can do. In negotiation terms, that's higher authority, and these fictitious sometimes sales managers who don't exist is just a way of negotiating the price. But if they give you £100 off, they make sure that when they come back from seeing the sales manager, they have actually you're actually going to buy the car at that point. They get your commitment before they see him that you will buy at that price. So be careful of that technique. Ask about what extras they might throw in. Car mats, stereo systems, things for you to plug your iPod in, and even free servicing. They'll say the service department is a different department and they can't give you a discount on that. Don't believe them. Keep pushing them. And then this is what I do. I walk out. But before I walk out, I get the email address of the salesman or sales lady, but there's not many sales ladies in car showrooms for some strange reason. And I get the email address and I walk out saying, no, you still need to give me something off. Often the salesperson will follow you. They might even try the Colombo close, which I'll mention at the end of this clip. And then you get home and you email the person after the showroom's closed, so they get the email the next morning, and you say, I've been thinking about the car overnight, I really like the way you showed me the car, I like the car, and if you could come off another, let's say £500, 500 euros, then I will give me a ring in the morning on my mobile number, I'll come in and pay a deposit and we can do the deal. What you're actually doing there is you're changing the sales process from them selling to you to you selling to them, saying to them, if you come off £500, then I will come in and buy the car. Now I've tried this 3 times and 3 times it's worked. At about 10:25, and I asked them to phone me by 10:30, the phone goes, oh Derek, you phoned, you said about that. I tell you what I can do, I can find an extra £150. And I said to the salesman, whose name happened to be Paul, no, I said £500, Paul. Oh, Derek, I can't go that far. Well, what else can you throw in? What about a couple of services? They would cost about £200 each, Paul. Will that do? Well, I could probably do 1 extra service. You see what we're doing now? We're haggling. And when you're haggling, you need to get as close as you can. Don't beat the person up and take too much, but just make sure you get the price down. So by walking out the showroom, you're showing them you're not so keen. By emailing them, you're turning the process round. And number 3, when they call you, then you get into the haggling process. A couple of other tips about when you're negotiating. Make sure that you've got other options of cars to buy. So other models, so the salesperson thinks they're in competition with the Volkswagen garage, with the Ford garage, with the Peugeot garage, etc. Know that they're going to use negotiation tactics on you. They tend to slow the price down. They get their calculators out and work out the numbers. They might say to you, well, it's only an extra £200 a month. Surely you can afford that. And then they might use the Colombo close on you. Do you remember the TV program, Lieutenant Colombo? He always used to play the dumbest smart negotiation tactic, which goes a bit like this. I don't really understand this, or I'm feeling a bit stupid today, or my brain's not working too well. And therefore, when he did that, it was always the reason that he wanted to extract more information from the other person. Well, the Colombo close is when you get to the door of the car showroom walking out, the salesperson goes, oh Derek, oh how stupid of me, I can't believe I'd forgotten, we'd had a special email down giving extra discounts this morning, but I didn't have time to read it. Come back in, sit down, and let's see if I can, through this head office offer, get you another £100 off. It sounds a bit techniquey. It is. But there we are, these things happen. We need to know that when we're going to buy a car, the car salespeople have been trained in sales tactics, negotiating tactics and influencing tactics. Some people are great, some people are really genuine, other people aren't so genuine. All you need to know is that you're negotiating, know what you want to pay, and get the car that you want. Good luck with your car negotiating. People often ask me about negotiating tactics, and I always think back to the story of it's a piece of work I did for a client in Paris when we were negotiating the sale of a vineyard. What actually happened was, this was a very famous vineyard down in Bordeaux, very close to Bordeaux, and they were trying to sell it for quite a lot of money. But the people that were buying it thought they could get it at a very cheap deal. And they used all sorts of negotiation tactics on us, and I want to describe some of those to you. So the first thing they did was they wouldn't allow the meeting to take place till 6 o'clock in the evening. So they said, we can't meet you until 6 o'clock in the evening in Paris. Second thing they did was they made some phone calls to the people that work for us, threatening legal action and all sorts of things, and that was a type of good guy, bad guy tactic they played on us. So off we went to France, and we took with us a French speaker, and we didn't tell the French people that we had a French speaker with us. We let them assume that perhaps we didn't understand when they talked in French. Anyway, we get to the meeting at 5:30 in the afternoon, and they haven't arrived. And bearing in mind it's on their premises, they said, very sorry, they're still out. And they turn up at 6:15, 3/4 of an hour late. They invite us into the meeting room, and they sit on one side, we sit on the other. Very aggressive sort of negotiating position, eyeball to eyeball. And they're very slow. They offer us some coffee. Sometimes they speak in French, and they suddenly at about 8 o'clock they say to us that they think that we're flying back on the 9:45 flight from Charles de Gaulle Airport to Heathrow. They assumed that we had a time problem, and they pushed the negotiations at that point. There's a negotiation tactic there that I want to talk to you about, the 80-20 rule. 80% of the concessions usually come in the last 20% of the negotiation time. So you have to be really careful about time. Secondly, they assumed that we didn't speak French. We had a French speaker with us. So when we took a timeout, which is another good negotiation tactic, and a break, we could understand what they were saying. And the third thing was the seating plan was particularly aggressive to put us in a difficult position. Well, when it came to 8:45 in the evening, suddenly they realised that we didn't have a time problem, but they did, because they had to go to another meeting at 10 o'clock in the evening. Suddenly they were in panic. They pressed us to close the deal and were surprised that we didn't, and we had to re-adjourn to have another meeting 10 days later when we sorted things out. That was an interesting thing I learned, and that was the beginning of how I learned that you have to understand tactics, you have to understand when people are using tactics on you, and you understand the types of tactics that they use. But the golden rule is make sure you understand the tactics being played on you. So frequently when I'm talking to people, they ask me about understanding negotiation tactics. It's very important that you do understand a tactic, because a tactic's used on you to make you feel weaker in the negotiating position. So let me talk to you about some of the tactics. Well, number one is just flinching, just saying that's really expensive, you've got to do better than that. How do you feel when someone does that to you if you really want the deal? It's more likely to drive you down towards your bottom line. Tactic two, I have a better offer from somebody else, you better sharpen your price. True or false? You don't know, but it's a good tactic. Next tactic, you're far too expensive. You need to do something about that. How do you handle that? They're all forms of flinching or whatever. I remember the story about President Khrushchev of the USSR when he was negotiating in at the United Nations, and he actually was passed a shoe by one of his colleagues to bang on the table just at the point where he was saying it was outrageous what the Americans were doing with the nuclear arms disarmament, etc., etc. When they played the videotape back, they watched the aide pass the third shoe to him rather than him take his shoe off. It was all pre-planned negotiation tactic. And of course, banging your shoe on the table in half the countries in the world would be a complete insult to the other side. Now, one of the most common negotiation tactics is using higher authority. In other words, saying I have to refer to the committee, I have to refer to the directors, I have to refer to the board of directors, or whatever. Or even some people say, well, I have to run that past my wife. It's a bit expensive. She's really cost conscious. We don't have that sort of money in our budget. So what you're doing is you're third partying it and blaming somebody else. The next tactic is good cop, bad cop, where you can be the good person and the other person is the higher authority that you're blaming. When they like you and you're trying to get the deal, they're more likely to give you more information, answer questions better, etc. So you've got that rapport. The third tactic I want to mention is time, using time to your advantage. The person that controls the time usually controls the negotiation. If someone's got time pressure, they need to leave the meeting. 80% of the concessions come in the last 20% of the negotiation time, according to popular research. The next tactic is using silence. Ask a really good question and then remain silent and see what answers you get. And as you can see, it's funny when there's that silence. That was only 3 seconds, but it seemed a very long time indeed. Another tactic is called the Columbo tactic, from Lieutenant Columbo. Peter Falk, the actor, made a series of TV programs in the 70s and 80s when he always used the tactic I don't really understand. Can you run that past me again? When if he didn't understand it, or he thought someone was spinning them a line, or he wasn't telling the truth, he'd get them to tell the story again. And sometimes it's more difficult when you're trying to convince someone for the second time or the third time. The next tactic is watching the body language, bringing somebody with you, so when you ask a difficult question they can watch the body language. So maybe they go, oh well, you know, yeah, we can't do that, or we can do that, when they're folding their arms. If they're saying they like something but at the same time they fold their arms, the folding of the arms is a negative, and yet the positive is saying they like something. So picking stuff up from the body language, research says it's 5 times more difficult to lie with the body language than it is with the voice. So that's pretty useful to know. So understanding tactics in negotiations is crucial. I've given you some of the more popular tactics. What you really need to know is when someone's playing a tactic on you, stop, think, ask yourself why, and maybe take a break and think about how to respond. So to all of you watching this, my friends in Slovenia, thank you for inviting me to your conference. I'm delighted to be able to talk about some negotiation issues. Remember, there are 3 issues you need to think about. Always ask, always listen to what the person's saying, and always trade concessions. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the not too distant future in Slovenia. Thank you.